All right, so you're not going to get away from the artist introduction because you have to get artist introduction too.
No,
so everybody,
that's fine.
The artist that you see on your screen is a friend of mine who I met about a year and some months ago. She's a regional fetter. She is a regional fetter. We actually met each other in Beckway during Easter weekend last year at a party. And I was very, very interested in the conversation and find out what she does as a profession after. Not going to go into the public practice, but I'll get into a private state of mind. For the last year, we've had conversations geared towards something like this. And we never really knew how we were going to get to this point. But from her looking at the platform for the last couple of weeks and seeing what we've been doing with DJs and creatives, she's been gracious enough for us to have some conversation and for us to get to this point. So we're going to have a talk like buddies, like we are. But at the same point in time, we are really hoping that what we say tonight is going to impact people that's looking forward. So ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Alisa Alvis, our clinical psychologist for the night. Yes, I'm making sure I'm pretty doctor there. How are you tonight?
First of all, I'm really happy to be here because I know we've been chatting about this for a while and talking about how can we do this? How can we make this topic that we have personal interest in something that feels important and applicable for other people who may not think that there's any intersection between these things. So I'm just really happy to be here tonight and see what kind of conversation we're able to have and, what input we get from our listeners, because I have some deep beliefs about it, but, I'm curious as to what other people think.
No, as we usually say for all our lives, if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the comments and put a question mark next to it. But yeah. I also do understand that based on some of the stuff we may be talking about, there may be some level of confidentiality needed. So I'm also inviting you. You can follow me on Shomari KRL and send me a direct message. And I will get to the question so that you don't have to be identified. And we really, I guess, in addition to all the lives, but tonight, we really want people to have input in this because we are trying to break a stigmatization when it comes down to this. I see a couple of my friends from North America are involved in this. Some of them are my personal friends, and I know that for them, this is an important conversation amongst them. So we're right now trying to break ground in the Caribbean with people that is not a usual topic. Agreed?
Yeah. Right.
So, and because I know it's you, and because of this conversation, I have an entire phone of notes. So this is notes here, right? So this is notes based on questions I would have gotten from people, and interestingly enough, people who would have wanted to know why what we are doing is important. So I feel that is the first thing I can ask, right? So why is it important for us to have a discussion about this, especially when it says that we are a DJ platform? It's a platform geared towards entertainment. It's geared towards creatives. It's geared towards people who are picking up a craft, entrepreneurs. Why is it important for us to deal with the entire mental health and well-being side of creatives listening tonight? So if I'm a young DJ, 22 years old, I usually come here to hear about how I do a scratch or a mix or how I go on stage. But now we have Shomari and this pretty doctor lady sitting down talking to me at the same point in time. Why is this important at this point in time?
I think I could give a lot of different types of answers, right? So I'm going to rattle off a few, and we might even end up going in a direction because of some of the things I see. So if we're talking about this just from the standpoint of just people, your mindset and where you are in terms of wellness influences everything you're doing. So creative or not, blue collar worker, white collar worker, whatever, how you're doing from the standpoint of how mentally your mental fitness is going to influence everything. Right. So there's that foundation, no matter what kind of work we're talking about. Right. But if we're talking about specifically creatives, I can think of so many ways that this influences you. It influences, so what's going on for you psychologically, emotionally, influences how you create, what you put out into the universe for other people to experience and react to. Because, a lot of about creating and performing art is connection, right? And what is that if not, my mind attempting to have connection and resonance with your mind?
Right.
So having some sense of what's happening for people in to you, I know I use a big word. I wanted to say intrapsychically.
Right.
But like what's happening in their internal space? Because everybody has an internal world, right? So being in touch with what's happening with your internal world helps you with your personal process. And then having an understanding of other people helps you know better how to connect with them.
Right.
What energy do you feel coming off of somebody and how do you tap into that? How do you mold that? I mean, what is a DJ if not a person who taps into and influences the energy of a crowd?
Right.
That's what you do.
Right.
So I feel like there's deep connections there and relevance, especially when and because of the context that we're doing it in, this time, what's happening now, there's something going on that's influencing everybody's mindset, everybody's feelings. So to understand what people feel like right now is to understand how they are managing this.
Right.
Yeah.
But there will be people who will say, I'm not bothered, right? There'll be people, I know a couple of friends personally who will be like, yo, I'm not bothered. I just waiting for the airport to reopen so I could fly this place, or I waiting for the next party to happen, or waiting for the next carnival to happen, which ironically is a very big part of the conversation. So I want everybody to start thinking about, what if there was no carnival whatsoever? That is one thought process I want to put in everybody's mind. What if there was no carnival whatsoever? What would that look like, right?
You telling come on live tonight to break hearts. What?
But is it right and safe to say that everybody in some way or the other would be affected by this, even if it is that they say they're not affected by it?
I think so. I think there's a question of how deeply you want to introspect.
Right.
Or what experience you have with that. Because some of us don't really make a practice of looking inward often.
Right.
Right. That's just not how we manage things, not how we cope. You know, that doesn't mean that there aren't things happening for you. It just means that you're not looking inward at them and maybe not examining them.
Right. Yeah. I get your point. Now, generally speaking, as I said, there's a DJ platform, right? So we've had Private Ryan, Puffy, Captain John, etc., etc. A lot of who's who of entertainment throughout the industry. I know a lot of people would take advice from them in terms of going forward with their career. This is the first time ever that we're doing something like this, where we're talking to somebody who more deals with your psychological and mental motivation going into it. So what you think the biggest misconceptions of people in your profession, and how do you see that misconception being able to change, especially when it comes down to something like this?
Oh boy, there's so many things that even go back to just like how our society works. So I think the first big thing is people thinking that psychologists are mystical in some way. So not really understanding what we're interested in, what we study.
Right.
At all. And really we study human behavior. That's all. Right? But there are people, I think also because of how we're portrayed on television, you know, that often the portrayals of both psychologists and psychiatrists is like, you know, they're either sleeping with clients or trying to drug somebody.
Right.
You know, like that's all they're doing. So it's some of what people's thoughts has to do with, you know, how we're portrayed in popular culture.
Right.
And then if we're going to talk about the Caribbean specifically, there's things having to do with our preferences or what we're taught about how we should cope with things. And I think, so let's talk about, you know, faith. There's a lot of people who their first reaction would be like, I'm going to manage this through the lens of my faith. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to speak to my pastor. I'm going to lay it down at the altar. And that's fine. Like, I have no problem with that. Just to putting that out there as a disclaimer. But I think that there's a misconception of whether or not that can successfully coexist with seeing a therapist. And I think that people also have the impression that you can only see a therapist if something's wrong with you.
That's something too, so that this is something I plan to deal with in detail after. So
Yes.
everybody here would have some friend or the other who going through some challenge. And I'm going to bring it back to a DJ context, right?
Okay.
I have one friend in particular who I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, and he literally told me that he was not doing well because of multiple factors. He's not able to travel. He's not making any money right now. Gigs in his country has dried up. And basically, he's at a point where it is that he as he puts it, he just don't know, right? And generally speaking, for somebody like me, I would think about that in terms of, well, how is this entire situation psychologically affecting you? But if you're from St. Vincent, they'll probably tell you, well, go and drink a rum and relax yourself. Somebody else might tell you, go and smoke a weed and relax yourself. As plenty people in the life here might know, somebody might say, well, your mother might tell you, well, all you do is take it to God and God will help you. Which all these things may help in some particular way or the other. And to some people, it might seem that, especially having a conversation like this, is a waste of time because it's seen as airy-fairy science. Like, why I should talk about what affected me now? What would you say against that thought process?
That's a good question.
You see, like a guy here said, drink a sunset. Right. So drink a sunset.
Yeah. You know, I'll admit that that's a tough question for me to answer because I don't often sell therapy. I'll tell somebody about what I think the benefits are, but I won't try to sell it for you.
Right.
What I might do, there's an analogy that a student of mine used, and I liked it so much, and I promised myself I'm gonna keep using it, and I want to use it even in my own work.
Right.
She's somebody who comes from, you know, who comes from a laboring background and is now a trainee therapist. She's about to graduate.
Right.
And we were talking just about like, okay, well, you know, why anybody would want to go to a therapist, and you know, this whole, you know, these head shrinkers was the point. And she said, you know what therapy is like? It's like when you go and get a sea bath.
Right.
It's good for a whole heap of things. If you have cold and you're stuffy, you're gonna go slap your head so your nose could run.
Yeah.
If your muscles hurting you, if you feel good already, it's gonna make you feel better.
Right. Yeah.
So it's good for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And she was saying that she wants as many people to know that, you know, that therapy is like taking a trip to the sea.
Right.
And that, you know, if you are already in a good space and but you have, you know, some small limitation, you know, you can overcome that. Or even if you just want to know yourself better, it could. But also if you're struggling with something, it may be something you can add on to other things that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
All a therapist is there to do is to give you perspective. You know, maybe if somebody was struggling and if I did get into a more convincing frame of mind, I may ask them what they've already done.
Right.
And be like, okay, how's that been working out for you? Do you feel better?
Right.
You know, and if they've been feeling kind of better, then, you know, well, what gaps are there still?
Yeah.
And saying, okay, well, what if somebody could offer you maybe a different perspective and might help you come up with other solutions? Because that's what therapists are, we're guides, right?
I get that.
Yeah.
So as we say perspective, let me bring it back again to the reason for group theory. We have a bunch of people here who want to become better DJs and better performers, better artists, if you want to put it like that, right? And that is why we had conversations with people who have the technical skill behind up here turntables. We have conversations with people who could stand up on a stage with a microphone. But there will be multiple people who will see what we do and wonder, well, what is the big thing about that now? Like, why it is when a guy go on stage, he must feel like, you know, what is the big thing about somebody being a DJ or being an entertainer or whatever? So in some perspective, or from your perspective, could you kind of give the idea of why it is that being an entertainment person is such a euphoric high for some people? Obviously, it wouldn't be the same for everybody, but at the same point in time, I think there are some commonalities amongst people that would be like, this is the reason why it is that they've been doing this.
So I'm going to hypothesize a little bit, having never been a DJ.
Right.
But, you know, I have a performative element in my personality too, and I bring some of that therapy. So maybe I can draw on a little bit of that to think why. I think so. I myself wouldn't describe myself as extroverted, right? you talk about where people get their energy from. And some people really get a lot of energy from being amidst people. So maybe, so and it's not necessarily that everybody who's a performer is extroverted. Right. But in the moment where they have that going on, maybe they enjoy that connection with people.
Right.
But it also may be a means of expression.
Right.
Right. So maybe you're not somebody who, uses the kind of vocabulary I use to describe what's going on in my head or to explore my feelings or my thoughts. But that doesn't mean you don't have feelings and thoughts.
Right.
And those want to be outside.
Right.
They don't want to be cooped up in here. They want to be out there. Yeah. So it's a way of translating and putting them out into the world. Right. I think that for some creatives, I'd love to hear from people to hear if I'm backing up the wrong tree or not. But I'm wondering if there's some element of that too, of like I have things in my head. I've got thoughts, I've got feelings, I've got impressions, and when I put together a mix or when I write a song or when I build a beat, it's some of that I'm pouring into that.
It's interesting you raise that point, because a couple of weeks ago when I had Captain John, he was talking about when he wrote Dear Promoter, he was going through some different things in his life, and that was the motivation that went into writing his song, right? And this is where I'm going to give my first of 3 admittance for you. So this is the first one of the things I admit. A lot of my friends who know me really well have told me in the past that when I'm going through the worst, that is when I have my best stage performances, right? So is it then that as somebody who is in entertainment, could being that person on stage, whether it be a microphone or playing music and creating in that kind of way, is it that we are using that as a form of therapy for our own selves?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's pretty well, that's been talked about in even other places. You talk about comedians and the whole idea of the tears of the clown type of thing, where you can tell somebody's kind of working something out on stage. And I think there is an element of truth to that you're using the art to exercise something. Like there's a reason why, you got all those cliched statements that the best art comes from pain.
Right.
Because think about the word emotion. Motion. Right. It's a driver. It's a force.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something I wanted to ask. Let me see if I can come back to it, because again, I had a lot of things that I wanted to go along this line. But could it also be let me come back to that. Why is it that some people, especially DJs, are very, very introverted on the outside? They would never talk to anybody, but when they go on a stage, this totally different personality comes out. Which we have had multiple guys here who say, yeah, well, I'm real shy. And I have told people before, I'm generally a shy person, which I told you personally. And you're like, serious? So people never believe that. So a lot of times when you hear a DJ or entertainer say, well, I'm a shy person, people don't believe that. You understand? So why is it then that you could be a shy person on the outside, but when it comes to going on stage, and I see somebody saying, it's me right here. So why is it that you're a shy person on the outside? Or on the inside, sorry, so your friends might know you're being shy. But when you go on stage, you have the biggest voice, you have the biggest performance, your jersey coming off, you're whining somebody, girl child, you're doing this, you're doing that. Why, how is that possible?
It could be a few different things, right? So, and you're going to realize this is a first, well, you've experienced this already, me and your friends. So, when you talk to a psychologist, it's really irritating because they don't argue one answer, they give you 3 and 4. So, one thing that it could be, so you know how I think this is maybe the most widely documented one, where Beyonce has talked about the compartmentalization that she has. Right. She's a stage persona. There's some people who do that, where there's an aspect of me, a particular version of me that I tap into when I go on stage. So for some people, it may be that.
Right.
Some people, it may be there's things that inform them being more reserved in their day-to-day. And the stage offers a freedom from that.
Like an escape from the real world.
a release from normal inhibition.
Right.
So for some people, maybe it's that, you know, this offers, the stage and the performing sphere is a very specific space.
Right.
And if somebody were to ask me about it, I have to be like, well, I was performing. That has to do with my day-to-day life.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
you have the license to be who you are in that moment. I mean, I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but I feel that way about playing mass.
Right.
That's it's a different playbook, different rule book. Actually, rule book gets thrown out to a big degree.
Yeah, because on a carnival stage, and any female here who is in the live would understand this. On a carnival stage, you will have half your breasts out, half your bottom out. You're jumping, you're whining, you're waving, you're joking down the road, right?
Yeah.
But then Monday morning, you're in an office, and people might be like, hey, that is not the girl I see Monday or Tuesday on the road. And you're like, nah, well, so depending on who you are, it's like, nah, you didn't see me. Yeah. Somebody else says, sorry, that was a performance.
I'm a therapist, and I just tell my mother every Carnival Tuesday, because when you cross the station, just look for my backside in the camera.
Right. Right.
So for some people, it may be that it offers this avenue to tap into this other part of themselves that they don't always get.
Yeah.
To display.
Yeah. I saw somebody asking a question. I want to make sure to get to plenty of the questions because we want this to be as interactive as possible.
True.
The person was saying, should an entertainer tap back into that energy when they are going through a tough time? Is that healthy? So I guess in a way, is it healthy to put on this persona, especially when you're going through a challenging time?
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a delicate balance. And I mean, you and I have talked about this a bit, Shomari, this idea of like, how do you know when something has, when you, like, you know, when you're not feeling great, but how do you know that it's gotten to a place where you're like, boy, I might have to address this differently, or maybe I actually even need help. So in terms of, I think that what this person is asking is actually a good friend of mine. Hi, Daniel. Is like, does it get to a place where you're using that to kind of mask what you're going through and not really dealing with it?
Right.
I think that's such a good question. You know, I think that what a person does, like that energy that they tap into as a performer, can really be important for keeping somebody on an even keel. Right. And it gives you, like, I'm just thinking, you know, about times that even myself, like times that I've been depressed, you know, there's times where the level of your symptoms or how you've been feeling, you know, you don't feel great, but you can still get up to do something like that, where you're like, boy, I still feel very driven to do that. And that tells me that we're still in a place where, like, I'm not feeling great, but, you know, I'm working through it. The question then comes to me, you know, where you feel like you don't want to do those things anymore.
Right.
You just feel flat, you know, really, you know, just bleh. I don't even want to do that. And so for the person who's the performer, maybe being aware of that, like if they're feeling really burnt out and like, you know, the idea of doing a gig just makes me feel exhausted, I don't even want to do it. That probably, that should be a ringing bell for them, a red flag of, nah, something's not right. Normally I would want to do that.
But as I said that, and somebody sent me a question on my Instagram, and as I said, if anybody has any questions they want to ask or comments they want to make, and they don't want to be identified, you can send me one at Shomari KRL. Somebody said to me, people may be feeling a level of disconnection from themselves at this point, right? And they say, I've heard some people say that this whole COVID thing is a scene. And for anybody that is not Trinidadian, saying something is a scene means it's generally a bad thing. Right? Okay. And the basically saying, as a creative, how would you know if this situation is negatively affecting you? And it should be of concern, and you will be able to understand if it's actual sadness as opposed to depression. And that now brings me to a real major part of this conversation, in the sense that, again, in many parts of the Caribbean, if you have somebody that is going through something that's challenging, yeah, well, he just, you know, he catching himself, something wrong with him, but, you know, it's whatever. So for anybody that might want to know, how would you be able to tell the difference generally if like you're just sad by the situation, or if it's something that's much more deeper than just being sad because you can't go out, or sad because you can't play out?
So I want to be careful, you know, as I am with anything that has to do with a person being interested in something that has to do with a diagnosis. So I'm going to preface all of this by saying that if you are of a mind that something is going on with you mood-wise, and you're curious about whether that is something that is clinically relevant or severe, please seek out professional help. Don't use just this conversation that we're having tonight as your benchmark. I
just want to add to that. So you said something which is going to be a red flag for plenty people. Like, oh my God, she said seek out professional help. Why is it that by your experience in the Caribbean, if I go down the road and I fall down and I break my leg, I go in by a doctor. If tomorrow morning I wake up and I'm feeling sick, I go in by a doctor, right? But if I'm going through an emotional challenge like this, and clearly I'm having trouble being able to keep up or just keep in a good spirit and having negative and predominantly negative thoughts about myself, why is it that we never see that as, well, we need to go and see somebody for this?
I don't want us to digress and for me to forget your question about, how do you know that something is sufficiently severe? But, they are kind of tied together. This idea of, that's not a real illness, I think is something that a lot of people think.
Right.
Man, you just making a whole heap of noise for nothing, You're making a big deal out of nothing. And like you said before, like you don't just, hold our meds and relax.
Yeah.
Feel better, So I think that there is that idea of just like, that's not real. Your feelings are real. Your feelings are real. Your feelings are valid. They affect everything, right? I think that's one of the big stigmas that we have in this region too. It's not, first of all, it not being real, and also that it's an indication of weakness.
Right.
That to talk about how you're feeling and to say, I feel like I want to engage with a professional to deal with that is this big admission of like, oh, you just not a strong person. And there's other things, there's other things tied up in that, right? The religion thing, like we were talking about, like, oh, well, your faith can't be too strong if you need all of that. And there's also like, there's even racial and cultural things, like, Black people, you're supposed to be strong people.
Yeah.
There's those things too. So I think that there's this web of things that really agitate against somebody going to see someone. But I'm hoping that things like this, like seeing a therapist on their live and knowing that like these are just people, right?
Yeah.
They're of us and like us, and they could resonate with you and help you. I'm hoping. But in terms of the question you asked about severity, I think so. First thing first, everything that's happening right now, you're allowed to be really, really sad. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to grieve, as a matter of fact, because there's a lot that's happening right now that deserves, I think the correct word is grief.
Right.
It's loss. So, and when somebody is grieving, we don't define that as depression in psychology. If you come into me and tell me, oh, I've had extremely low mood, yada, 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 and then you tell me, and someone died, I'm like, that makes sense.
Right.
It's in the absence of something like that, in the absence of some other physical cause. If you've had very, very low mood for most or all days for 2 weeks or more, or if you have that loss of pleasure that I was talking about, where you feel like things that would normally bring you pleasure don't.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it. You don't want to engage with it. So those are the two big things that we look for. And then there's a bunch of other a lot of other things that accompany that. So disturbances in sleep, lack of appetite, or maybe eating too much, because some of us eat our feelings. I'm that person. I wish stress would make me skinny. It does not.
Yeah.
Not paying as much attention to your hygiene, just kind of letting yourself go. You don't shower, you don't groom yourself as much. And of course, the more severe end, thoughts of hurting yourself or thoughts of killing yourself.
Right.
Feelings of worthlessness are also a big indicator too. Like if you start feeling like, why am I even here?
Yeah.
What's the point of anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said that, I want to go back up to 2 comments quickly and a question I saw somebody put. So DJ Sly, but he raised a very good point. He said, tell a Caribbean parent you're depressed and they ask you if you want something to be depressed about. So our parents never saw us having these kind of discussions at anything of importance. That if you're feeling sad, boy, relax yourself. I will give you something to be depressed about. But I saw somebody saying here, do you have any tips for that flat feeling other than just writing it out? Which I think is a good point, because you were just talking about some telltale signs, or if it is that you feel to yourself that level of worthlessness, right? And something I get from a lot of creatives and a lot of DJs, and it's tied into social media, which is something I wanted to talk about later on, but I guess we could connect it here, is that you seeing other artists and other entertainers having all the success, and you playing in real practice for weeks, you buy a set of equipment, you this, that, the other, and you are not getting the kind of mileage that you thought you'd be getting, and that kind of affects you emotionally. Could you then speak to how is it that somebody can deal with those kind of thoughts? And as this guy said here, when you're actually feeling very, very low like that, what could you do then other than just writing it out? Other than people just saying, well, you have to continue doing your thing, you have to continue. Because doing your thing is different for everybody, but sometimes people want to hear something more than just doing your thing. Yes, and because sometimes at that point, you don't even know what your thing might be. You know, so I don't know if it is that you could speak to that at all in any general sense.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say here will likely be fairly general. I mean, I would love to have more specific conversations with people if they feel so moved after this conversation, after we do this live. Some of what I talk about with clients when people have been just really that flat is, you know, I work with something called the motivation ruler. Like you talk about, you know, well, how much do you want to do this thing? And I ask them to give me a number. And they may tell me, you know, my desire to do that is a 3 out of 10.
Right.
I say, you know, experiment with me. You know, go ahead and try to do it. You know, like sometimes it's something as simple as going through your day, because for somebody who may be very depressed, getting out of bed even maybe a huge effort, a heavy lift. Right. So, you know, I may check in with them about, like, you know, let's keep track of what happens when you choose to do things versus when you don't. Check in with yourself and what your energy level is and what your mood level is after you've successfully even done small things. You brushed your teeth, you took a shower, you had breakfast. Because sometimes the most you can do, like you said, like just do your thing, but sometimes I talk to clients about the next indicated thing. Right. What's the next smallest increment of thing that you can think of to do? Because you need to get the ball rolling somehow. So
then you would say then, to kind of answer the guy's question, that now you have to start to think of incremental things that you could do. So instead of studying to go big or go hard or go home, let's start smaller then. Say, okay, instead of me looking to go and do this, mix that, whatever, whatnot, let me start with something smaller, like, hey, it might be something not unrelated, but it's a small incremental step into making it feel more motivated. Right. Precisely.
Sorry, I was just thinking about the Trinidadian version of the slap chop pieces, little tiny pieces.
Right.
So that and really congratulating yourself and recognizing that when you do it, like, I did that. Now what's the next thing?
Right.
Because I find that people have a lot of trouble with that, particularly if they're comparing themselves to someone else. You know, you're looking at what someone else is doing, and if it's not as big, you're having trouble giving yourself credit for your successes, both your small successes and, you know, how those build out into bigger achievements. So really reinforcing yourself, praising yourself for the little bits. And sometimes that's what a therapist can help you do. We can help you point out your successes when you having trouble pointing them out for yourself.
And that's an interesting point, because going back to what I was saying before, I've had friends who would tell me, okay, DJ friends, I went online today to do a live, and I saw 5 people on my live for an hour. And then they would go on and see DJ D Nice or let me break it back local. You see Private Ryan and Travis World with 400-500 people at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you feeling less of a person because you there with 5 people who in and out and 1 girl and 2 fellas who know it from around the corner, and these guys have 500 people from all over the world looking at what they're doing, and you feel yourself of kind of close to worthlessness. Like, what is it that what I'm doing makes sense? And I guess what you're saying is that now you have to kind of re-evaluate your processes, if you put it like that, and kind of take things from small incremental goals and congratulate yourself for that to build into other things.
Yeah. Success builds on itself.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Chacha say here, I think most people don't know they are in that state, which is what you were talking about before. Most times they find coping mechanisms that may not really help them and move from their current situation. I also agree with that. And I wanted to actually answer something here where somebody said, some therapists are not confidential, so some persons are skeptical about seeing a therapist. Are you in agreement with that?
So it's a risk in any profession. I mean, our ethics are such that we are supposed to be strictly confidential.
Right.
As far as I can speak for myself and the persons that I train, we are strictly confidential.
Right.
Of course, as in any profession, there are individuals who do not engage in best practice, and who may even engage in rank malpractice.
Right.
But those people are in the minority.
Right.
Right. That being said, too, I think one of the things that's happening right now, and it's growing in popularity partially because of what's happening with regards to COVID, because I have to do so much service delivery remotely.
Right.
You might want to consider also getting services from somebody who does not live in your island or in your community. So there's a growing possibility and ability to do that. I want to respond to both things. I want people to believe that they can trust their psychological professionals. And I also understand that some people may have had a bad experience or even seen or heard somebody being not tactful or not discreet about their clients. And that's really unfortunate. I'm sorry that you experienced that. If so, if your doubts run that deeply, I don't want that to be the reason, or you've had that experience, I don't want that to be the reason that you don't go and seek out help if you really want it. Right. Know that there are other avenues and ones that maybe you would feel more secure with in terms of like, because we live in small islands, right? And we have small communities. There's such little degrees of separation between people. So I understand why they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
So, you can potentially see someone regional. So you're still getting that same piece. Like that person still has, the cultural similarities that might serve to make you more, that are going to help with the relationship with you and them. And you're still going to feel that sense of comfort, but it won't be somebody who you're going to put up.
Yeah. That's it. I think, Drea Empress, I saw your question. I'll make sure to come to it. But I also want to deal with a question for the fetters in the group, right? We all understand that, we like a good drink, we like a good party. But what is it really about Caribbean people that makes fetting so unique to us? Like, what is it? And again, that might seem like a simple question. But at the same point in time, what is it about the Caribbean nightlife or the Caribbean fetting that is different from everywhere else, especially from that euphoric level?
Boy, I don't know how we came to be the way that we are in terms of the particular way in which, not just even Carnival, I'm just talking about like how we socialize like on a weekly basis. Just the idea of like the Friday night line.
Right.
And it has a peculiarity to it that I haven't experienced in other places. I think other places do have their own ways of, like, you go to the States in the summertime, you're in Brooklyn, you sit out on your stoop. Like there's that. But the idea of like, what a Friday night watering hole, for example, looks like in the Caribbean, there's a certain feel to it. I don't know how it came to be the way it is. I just know it's really important. I know I miss it.
Right.
Like, even if I'm not going out, you don't have to be going out to get drunk. Most of us don't. We don't get out to get drunk. We go out to be with other people. We go out to be in communion with others.
Right.
And I think there's something special about doing it with our music in our very particular space. Like it's, I don't know. There's something. There's a sacredness to it. I think.
So it can be said then that, and it might be strange to say this, but fetting is actually good for your mental health.
Yes, I think so.
Right.
I think so.
Right. And as I said just now about representation and how we view things. Obviously on the weekend there was the versus battle that took place between Beenie Man and Bounty Killer. Right?
Yes.
And for whatever reason, there were people that felt a particular level of energy and happiness from seeing that, that kind of connected the Caribbean in a particular way. Do you see that as something that has been extremely important for us mentally at this point in time? And why? So for some people, especially as my friend Laurie had said it, the kiddies, right? So for the kiddies that probably didn't understand it, why was it important for I guess for multiple generations of especially music lovers to see something like that happen? And why was it a big thing like we the Caribbean one? What was the major reasoning for that?
Because we're so many islands, right? The Caribbean is so interesting. You know, you got this archipelago of islands, and they all have something unique about them, right?
Right.
But there's also commonalities running through them. And at any given moment, like if you spend time on Twitter, you see us flirting with both of those things. The things about us that make us particular and different from each other, and then the things that unify us. Right. And in a time like this, when everything is so uncertain and everybody is, you know, there's a certain degree of fear and just like not knowing, it was so comforting to come back to something that we all know.
Right, right.
It was like you had this focal point that's based on these are songs we all know.
Right.
You know, this is if it like, so for me, you know, a lot of the very popular Beanie and Bounty songs were that's high school for me.
Right.
But even if you're younger than me, maybe that's songs that your parents play in the house. They have some progressive young parents these days, so you know, you know it from that. Right. But either way, you have some connection to it, and it serves to bind together people who may have, you know, you've got these superficial differences, but then there's these things that are like deep ties.
Right.
You know, it's sort of like, I don't know, I'm getting this idea, like, you know, when you hit a tuning fork and you get a resonance.
Yeah.
And you get that same resonance in everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like even there's a call and response element. Like I was live tweeting through the battle. Right. You know, like anybody who knows Beenie Man, as soon as somebody says it's all about Romy, yeah. Because we all know it. So there's like this call and response. And there's that, like, there's a connectiveness through that too. Yeah. I think that was why. And so people really felt that, and I was like, yeah, the Caribbean one.
Yeah, I think that is important. These kind of things are important for people to feel connected at a time when we're supposed to be disconnected, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
because as I say, social distancing means that you're supposed to be away from people. But even in this live right now, we have people who are making comments about things and other people who are responding to it. And in that way, by this kind of community, as we call it, the collective community, you're able to share your ideas with people in a certain way. And that's why I see things like this actually important to maintaining some level of happiness and healthiness. And don't get twisted. I mean, yes, you could, as I said before, you could fall and break your foot. You could be injured. You could be sick in some particular way. But even here is part of your healthiness. Yeah. And I think a lot of us don't really see that as important. And by extension, when it comes down to actually performing and doing things, you would be amazed at when you don't feel healthy here, how it affects what you put out there. And sometimes what you put out might not be very professional, or sometimes, as you said before, you may not feel to put out anything at all. So that's why I think it's important that we have conversations like this. I saw somebody earlier say, do you have any resources for teletherapy, especially ones for in the Caribbean? So does that exist in the Caribbean?
Yes, it does. So there's a variety of so in each island there's private practitioners who are working. So I mean, depending on what island you're in, if there is a psychological association there. So in my case, I'm actually the president of the Grenadian Psychological Association. And here in St. Vincent, we've got a working group that is working on launching a Vincentian one. But on various Caribbean countries, there are national psychological associations that all fall under a regional body called CANPA.
Right.
But you don't have to get into that. The point is, whatever island that you live on, look to see whether or not there's a national psychological association first. And they would most likely be able to give you referrals. A lot of them maintain directories of their professionals.
Right.
Remember too that like I'm picking a psych professional. There's a certain degree of shopping. It's okay to do an appointment and not really feel it and be like, I don't know if that the fit was quite right. Let's try somebody else.
Right.
But yeah, there are more and more of us there were people who were already doing telepsychology, but now that this has happened and a lot of us have to provide remote support to even the clients that we have in the country that we're in, more and more of us are offering it.
Yeah, and I'm saying, Twisted Kimmy said, you feel safe being with people who look like you and love the same music you do. It's an unpretentious vibe. And I'm seeing Fetless saying, also fets are about love. Hence the low amounts of fights in fets compared to other urban parties. All right, well, I take that point as well too. Something I wanted to ask quickly before 9:30, because we might have to answer it past 9:30. So if we do, we'll come off and then come back on. I think everybody has an idea of, you might have a friend who you think might be going through a challenge, but I can't say it's us in the Caribbean, but probably internationally, it might be like, well, I want to be able to talk to the person to find out where it is going on, but I don't like to get in people's business. And then we have a tendency of seeing people go down a particular pathway and saying, well, that's not my business, that's his business. And these are good people that you may be good with. How do you, for anybody that's watching, are you able to broach being able to give that person the kind of support that they need without coming across like if you're trying to get into their personal life and find out intricate details that probably they are not ready to share with you? And the reason I say it's important is because a lot of times, and I'm going to say this openly like this, there are some people who we all follow, DJs and artists, that use social media and use that connectivity with people to be open with individuals. And then they go totally ghost for a long period of time. So you might be sitting and wondering, I wonder what's going on with this person, but I really want to message them because really and truly I want to be up in the business. So as an individual, I always say that we continuously keep saying, check in on your strong friends. But really, how many of us actually check in on your strong friends? And then I have people who say check in on everybody. So what is your advice in that mindset in terms of really and truly making it a priority to reach out to people without actually making them feel like they're trying to encroach into the business? Okay, no Caribbean people fast already, and we like to know what's going on with this one and that one.
Right. I love this question. I think there's so many helpful things that I could tell you about this question. A few different directions. So, in terms of checking, so let's start with the idea of entitlement to information. You are not entitled to anybody's information.
True.
Right? So, and anything that somebody chooses to share with you, they do it because they trust you, because they're choosing to be that vulnerable with you, and you should regard that with the seriousness that comes with it, right? And like I said, on the other side of it, they don't have to do that, right? They have a right to, maybe they're struggling with that. Maybe that's something that they're working through, right? So that being said, know that checking doesn't mean that they're going to answer you.
Right.
Or that they're going to give you a whole heap of information. They don't have to. They're not obligated.
Right.
So knowing that now, how do you start? How do you express care? There's two different types of skills that I use in therapy, right? But that people can use with each other. One of them is doing things with people. Like I'm doing something for you or with you in the hope of helping you with whatever you're going through. But there's also being with. Sometimes you need to just be with someone. And the things you can say that can communicate to someone, I want to be with you. I'm here with you. You're not obligated to say anything further, but I'm here. So you could check in and say something, you know, I finally hear from you in a while, and I wondered if you're doing all right. It's all right if you're not ready, if something is happening and you don't want to talk, that's okay. But know that if you ever do, I'm here. You can say things like that, but you have to say it, being prepared to just leave it there. Right. And if they say, you know, I'm going through something, I don't really want to talk about it right now. And depending on the relationship you have with that person, you got to let it go and be like, all right, I get it. I understand. I realize I'm giving a very general answer, and there are nuances there. There is the ability to potentially gently push, but I don't want to send people to do that. If what you really want to do is express your desire to be with somebody and that you've noticed that something seems amiss, just do that, and then see if they come to you. See if they come.
People would be surprised at sometimes just leaving that statement is so helpful in a great regard. And I always give this story that when I reached out a couple of weeks ago, I just reached out to Barry Hype out of blue, because he and I already have like a working relationship like that, but we do see each other, whatever. I was like, Barry, yo, we're just checking in to see how you're going, just randomly. And he was like, you know, well, he told me a couple of things was going on, but he's like, yo, brother, I really appreciate you checking in, because he really didn't see it that way. Yes, sir? And a lot of people feel like saying those kind of words, especially guys, males, like coming out and telling somebody, yeah, well, if you want to talk, well, you know, I hear. It seems sometimes like we shouldn't have to do something like that. Is that agreed?
Well, the next thing is too, you can also do things, and I've tried to get better at this. There's sometimes where I don't say, like, somebody could cross my mind, but I wouldn't say nothing because I don't feel like I had time to have like a big convo with them.
Right.
And that I feel bad.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, was telling me that he was trying to get better about just telling people that you're on my mind when you're on my mind. You can even say, you know, I don't have any big time to talk right now, but you ran through my mind, and I just want to tell you, I'm thinking of you, and you know, I'm hoping you're okay. Like, that is helpful to people as well, and I've tried to do more of that, because, you know, I know a lot of people, and I can't necessarily, and some people I don't get to catch up with as often as I'd like.
Yeah.
And like you said, those things, people actually find them really powerful. I know I find them really powerful too. Just being remembered. Yeah. Being remembered is really profound.
Yeah.
People have all kind of things they could be doing. They know how to remember you.
Yeah. One of the important things you said just now, which I thought was really, really important for people who might be struggling at this point in time, and I want to reiterate that point, because again, people who have now joined, is that if you are challenged at this point and you don't feel as if you are okay in that regard, set small incremental targets for improvement every single day, and congratulate yourself on making those incremental improvements. So for a DJ, it might not necessarily mean going and do a live, but it might mean that you could do something in your own space to incrementally improve what you're doing. And I'll give an example to that, because I want to give it as a practical example here. Instead of doing a live and feeling bad because you might have 6 people on your live and somebody else might have 1,000, choose a day to go through your computer and see how best you could redesign your music for yourself, and give yourself some targets on how to do that. Or choose a day when it is that you link up with some of your other friends who are important to you at that point in time, and you all put in some practice sessions together, because that in a way is small ways that improves on what you're doing. But at the same point in time, it helps motivate you to continuously go forward, which I guess is a suggestion I could give to anybody, right? Yeah. And this is coming from somebody who does not have a PhD behind his name, so only take that as free advice today, right? Anyway, so what?
So send my invoice when we done.
Say that again, sorry.
So send you my invoice when we done.
Yeah. You can do that. You can do it, right? So I want to get to the discussion at Carnival, right?
Yeah.
There are multiple people out here who would spend every waking day waiting to spend money on a t-shirt, right? Spend every waking dollar on a carnival costume. And I asked people at the beginning, imagine that there was no carnival whatsoever. So I guess what I would like to first ask is, why is it that we as Caribbean people are so connected to carnival in that kind of way that we would actually go starving for a whole year to buy a costume? We would not do other things that are priority in our lives to ensure that, you know, we'll go and play a mass or whatever, whatnot. And do you think that carnival depression, which is it? Do you think that carnival depression is actually a serious thing? It's not a pie in the sky. It's not a pie in the sky thought like, well, yeah, I come to carnival and I'm really depressed. Is carnival depression a real thing?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm like, that's the reason I was like, let me just, you know, say that I am among the masses that was about to be in her section leader costume.
Right.
This year,
right.
Just like I was last year.
Right.
You know, I see my friend Enika in the comments, and I know she feels the same way about this as me.
Right.
Mass is life.
Right. And
so when you pay for a costume, you're not paying for the costume. You're paying for the experience. You're paying. It is a comprehensive, all-encompassing, immersive thing that you're paying for. And people choose to spend their money in all sorts of ways. Some people buy lotto tickets. Some people have hobbies. You know, some people travel. Some of us buy costumes.
Right.
You know?
I see the person, masses are escape, masses. Yeah, she said, masses are escape then.
It can be. But I hesitate to make it any one thing. It is so many things.
Right.
On the one hand, yes, it's an escape. I know I'm going to wax philosophical. Yeah, pull me off my soapbox. It can be a way of removing yourself from your everyday life. But on the other hand, it can also be a way of being so present.
How so?
Because, oh boy, there's so many sensations involved, right? So there's you know, what mass is like from a sensory perspective, the sounds of mass, the rhythms of mass, the visuals in the terms of the costumes. So it's very immersive where that's concerned, and that really brings you to the present.
Right.
You can't be pulled. You know, it drags you almost forcibly to be present.
Right.
But then there's also, at least for me, I'm really, really aware of the people around me, not just in terms of like what, you know, they're in costume and we're dancing and all of those things, but just like I'm aware of us as a body.
Right.
As a unit.
Right.
And that's a very, very particular way of being present and like holding space with people. Again, in a way, like, I mean, so, like, I'm not Christian, for example, right? I was raised Christian, but I'm not currently Christian. I'm agnostic. Mass is spiritual. I think it's like it's like church,
right?
Where one or two are gathered. What? It's that same.
Where one or two are gathered, we will jam on each other.
Right? No, but like there is that idea of like, you know, we are here in almost like there's a communion about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that currently with virtual parties, because I had this conversation with Just Jay, and he was saying that as much as we'll have virtual parties, it could never replace an actual party, right?
Yeah.
Do you foresee, especially as we're going into what is called in America the summer, but in Trinidad and Tobago we call it July, August, in the region we call it July, August. Do you foresee that the online virtual parties can replace the happiness of actually being an outdoor event? And if not, what can individuals who are in probably areas that because I've been talking to different DJs from other islands who said that they're going to have lockdowns till July. Some people are not going to have carnivals. That's going to happen for the entire July, August. And as for everybody would know, the major carnivals that are taking place in Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, everywhere, they are all cancelled for the season. Can virtual parties replace that? Is that possible?
Replace is a strong word.
Right.
I think that they are a stopgap measure, and I think that they do help a lot, just for the same reasons that we were talking about with Versus. Like, it helps people tap into that same energy potentially.
Right.
It's not the same though. I mean, like for people in islands where, you know, we've had a little bit of loosening of restrictions. St. Vincent it hasn't been under strong restriction, but like I have friends in other islands, and when they get a little free up and they get to even see like a small group of people, they're like, boy, that was like revelatory. Like, boy, I never know I could have missed friends. So,
right.
You know, so it's definitely not the same.
Right.
But it's a helpful substitute,
right,
for the time being.
Yeah, because I remember when you and I were talking last week, we brought up a concept of the function that social spaces play in West India and Euphoria. And the idea that for whatever reason, you and a ram dance and a sweaty party plays to happiness. And that's so funny too. You would go to a party and the party would be scanty and you'd go and say, yeah, it wasn't all that. But you'd go to somewhere where you probably can't move properly, and all of a sudden you could go back home and say, yo, this party was real lit. And for whatever reason,
it's crowded, eh? Because crowded, so it depends on how it crowded, eh?
Right.
Sometimes when places are crowded and it's clear that everybody not on the same frequency.
Right.
But then there's other times where somewhere it's crowded, but everybody is on the same wavelength. Yeah. And that's correct.
Yeah.
I
seen somebody here saying it's not the same because less senses are touched. A real walk up does not begin to compare to a virtual walk up. And it's the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth that for us, and I think that is why, and I brought this point from a promoter perspective. I'll tell you why. I want to pick up Zale, which is one of the teams as well, and they have had one virtual party, and they stated to me that, you know, there are other things that they would like to do as well too, right? And it's because as much as it is that you can have a virtual party and a virtual event, at the same point in time, nothing really beats that live action feeling. So I guess it's incumbent then on event organizers to not just have the online parties, but try to look outside the box of what actually could attract people's attention at this point in time, other than the online party. Would you agree to that?
I think so. And maybe it's a good thing that we're having this conversation. Who knows what promoters or what event organizers might be listening to this and generating ideas, because if there's a particular type of feeling that you're trying to create, or a type of energy that you're looking to tap into,
right?
Like an itch you're looking to scratch,
right?
Then you can work backward from that and maybe decide, okay, well, how can we best go about that, right? That that you're hearing, well, people want to feel connected,
right?
So how do we make people feel as involved as possible? How will we make this any different than listening to the radio?
Right.
How do we put the participants in connection with each other? Because that's what people are thirsting for.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the answers to that either. That ain't why I do it further.
Yeah.
But who knows? Somebody may be able to come up with like I would agree with you that people should get innovative and be forward thinking about how do we get that. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about some of the stuff that happens when we're in person. It lets you engage in these little social, like these social actions and a little dance between people. I don't mean an actual dance. I mean like an interaction, and you can't replicate those things virtually, right? Yeah. Like, you are dancing a party with somebody you don't know, right? And you can have a whole conversation,
right?
With somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that those are the types of things they're don't make a dirty joke about this, Shomari.
I'm listening. I'm
gonna
listening.
use the expression. I can't think of a different way of
Just say it.
But like there are these interactions like that, and even like flirty type of interactions, like they're social lubricants. Like they like, and there's no way. Shush. You see? I know. You're gonna stop it.
Right.
So, but you know what I mean? Like there is something to that, and it you know, it makes people kinder and nicer toward each other. It eases.
Sorry, I look at double A said lube.
My brother, listen, you don't come out to keep them live. You gonna make me.
so we can then say in a funny way that social interaction, like physical interaction, is social lube then, or as the guy put here. So we just teamed the word here, a term here from double AMD, social KY. That's correct, right? Social KY. I like that too. I just want to go back to what Twisted Kimmy said here. The thing is too, the party experience takes in your outfit too. We also like to dress up and make up and whatever new shoe the fella is trying to show. All of that is encompassed in the party vibe. And they're right, because the truth and fact is that you get chance to go out, you get chance. To some extent, you can look at it as you're getting chance to kind of brandish some of the success that you might have had, right? Yeah. So if for the week, getting paid is a success, right? So let me say you buy, no, it's the truth. If you get paid, whether it be from a small job, a big job, whatever, and you go and you buy yourself a new kit, or for ladies that buy yourself a new dress or whatever, and you pair heels, that kind of shows that you're some level of successful, even if it isn't that small way. And now that you don't have the ability to go out and do that, how does that affect your feelings towards yourself?
Yeah. You know, that's a good question. I know that like that is something that me and my friends, and that's one of my friends is the person who made that comment. It's just like you just want to get dressed up and look nice and go somewhere.
Yeah,
there's that feeling too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and again, just for anybody that's joining this conversation, that is why we deem it important to have this, because I think a lot of people look at some of the thoughts that they have as pie in the sky, or one of the things we've tried to accomplish with this group theory series is that we wanted people to understand that everybody has the same thoughts, if not in a different way, right? And even people who are in entertainment entertain thoughts that the normal people have that you probably wouldn't think that they would have, you understand? So I have myself remember talking to DJ Puffy, and Puffy saying, well, yeah, I went to see a therapist. And I remember a couple of people to me like, yo, well, Puffy went to see a therapist. I was like, yeah. And the truth in fact is he felt that nothing was wrong with him. But by going to see somebody and talking out different things about his life, he was able to see how him being a DJ and him being a performer now was connected to things that happened when he was younger. And he would have never known that if it is that he didn't take the time to actually delve within himself. So even for an entertainer and a performer, to figure out sometimes why it is that you want to do this, it means that you have to delve into yourself of what is your motivations and where did the motivations come from to be able to go out and do this one thing, or if this is something that you really want to do. And that's why I think it's extremely important to have these kind of conversations, even if it's preliminarily in this kind of way, because it kind of drives thought to people who are looking on. Like, so we just had a conversation about, well, why it is the virtual parties would never replace the normal parties. And as I said, Twisted Kimmy just said, you know, sometimes I just want to dress up and go out. And for somebody wondering, well, why it is I never want to go a virtual party, it's probably because you just really want to dress up and go out. And you shouldn't feel pressured that your friends telling you, well, why I didn't come into your party, or why I didn't whatever, or whatnot. If it is that you don't feel it's something for you, then it's not ready for you. You understand? On that note, for people that in business, and there's a question I got online tonight as well on my Instagram account. Somebody is saying to me, what are the emotional challenges, not challenges, I know they're trying to ask, but basically, how do they go about making decisions at this point in time pertain to entertainment, especially understand that this is an uncertain time. And I know this because he kind of tell the story about when he wants to be able to further his career, but he don't know if it is that he should take the chance to do it right now because he don't want to buy this, he don't want to buy that, and he have no money coming or whatever, whatnot. And one of the points he made to me was that he's feel that type of way as having feeling uncomfortable. So I guess that speaks to anxiety then, right? And for anybody here who might not understand generally what anxiety could be like or look like, could you kind of explain that to them and kind of speak to what that individual is talking about in terms of these thoughts that build this uncomfortable feeling within that person?
Oh boy. I mean, there's so many different ways that anxiety can manifest, right? And different symptoms that people experience, right? Because for some people experience a lot of physical symptoms associated with anxiety, and some people don't at all.
Right.
I think that a lot of people assume that that anxiety chiefly has to do with worry, but overthinking or feeling stuck can also be a feature of anxiety. You know, where you the fancy word that we would use for it is ruminating. Like if you get stuck on an idea and you find you kind of can't let it go.
Right.
Chewing on it. Having a tough time making decisions can be part of anxiety too, where you find back and forth, you're torn, you can't decide. But generally, when I think of the classic idea of anxiety, I go back to the root of the word. Right. The root of the word means to be without air.
Right.
You choke. You know? And people who experience there's lots of different disorders that have to do with anxiety. There's lots of ways to experience anxiety, but generally it has to do with dread pertaining to the future. Right. It's negative feelings or unpleasant feelings associated with something yet to come or something that you're worried might happen.
Right. So I guess then that person is trying to find coping mechanisms of how they can deal with that feeling, especially when they have to make decisions. And this is now where I'm going to make my second admission for this conversation. So I'm willing to admit to everybody here that I have myself have gone through and do face at times anxiety, right? And it's not something I make very public. I see one of my friends who is in here, she's from DC. And I mentioned where she's from because she will know who she is, one. But two, she would understand that when I messaged her earlier this week and I told her I wasn't good, she understood the reasoning of what I said. And I think there are many people who, again, will be going through that feeling of anxiety and are pressured by the fact that individuals around them would think, well, something going on with he and he just going off or she just going off. That is a common thought process that people have when it comes to a misconception that people have to anxiety. But at the same point in time, I do believe, and I guess that is one of the reasons why I have you here to speak to this, to kind of indicate to people watching on who may not really understand that anxiety is really a serious thing, it's an actual thing. It's not just, again, a thought that you hear people talking about in certain forums and areas, but people may really be suffering from that. And it's not, as you said, they're just going off or they're just whatever, as we Caribbean people like to say. But it's actually a situation and a feeling that is a genuine thing.
Yeah. I mean, you can use different types of metaphors or analogies to help somebody understand anxiety. Well, one of the ones I talk about a lot is that we feel anxious when we look at our life and we think we have a problem that needs solving.
Right.
Something that we're trying to address. And we look at the size of the problem.
Right.
And we check within ourselves for, what resources we think we have. And we sense a mismatch between the two, or we perceive a mismatch between the two. We think that the problem is bigger than the resources we have to address it.
Right.
And or the resources that we will have to address it, because often the problem is something, like I said, future facing.
So that's actually first point I want to put that you kind of look at the problems that you have right now in whatever it is that you're doing, how you look at life, are bigger than the resources that you have. And resources does not necessarily have to mean physical resources, correct?
No,
right.
No, it can mean lots of different things.
Right. Right. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So it can mean physical things. So, talking about this person who's thinking about career development, right? And maybe wondering whether to invest money really in whether it's learning how to do a new thing, whether it's buying equipment, but investing in themselves financially, and wondering if, okay, will that mean that later on down the road I will not have the finances to meet my basic needs? Like that's a very real anxiety, and and one that I think is hitting a lot of us right now. And trying to make decisions around that is really, really difficult. But it doesn't only have to mean physical things or finite things like money. It can be, I wonder if I'm going to have the stamina to do the thing that I need to do. I wonder if, I feel within myself that I feel somehow fragile, or I feel exhausted, and I wonder if I've got the internal resources for that. Like I think about that happening, and I'm feeling tired and we haven't reached yet. Right. So it can be things like that as well.
I saw two people earlier here ask essentially, what do you suggest for people who have anxiety? So if it is that you think that you have anxiety, you're uncomfortable in that particular way, what suggestions do you make to individuals who are dealing with anxiety on their own, or they know somebody that might be dealing with anxiety and they want to be able to help them in some particular way?
So the first thing that I would say, because different people, their anxiety manifests in different ways, right? So I'm gonna give an answer that is very general, that has to do with the piece that pertains to time. Right. Remember, we said anxiety has to do with you being preoccupied with the future. Right. Really, I wonder what's gonna happen, and I'm not sure, and what if is I think is a big phrase for persons who are anxious, right? You don't have a lot of control over the future. Right. It's not direct control. So the first and biggest intervention that I like, and the things that I recommend to persons who are struggling with anxiety, is to first bring yourself back to the present. Right. So a lot of the first and most simple things that I suggest have to do with mindfulness, and that has to do with being in the present moment and slowing yourself down. And some of that is I recommend meditative practice and breathing exercises. I know that some people think that that's kind of, hippie and crunchy and new agey, and I actually thought that the first time it was introduced to me too. Right. So I get it if you do. What I would say is try it out. Right. Use one of the many apps that are out there now. I personally use 10% Happier. I like that one a lot. But being mindful doesn't mean getting rid of your thoughts, first of all. Right. You don't have to achieve a state of Zen. You're not a monk. But it's about coming back to your center and coming back to the present. Also, grounding exercises. Those are something that I really like to do myself, and I like to recommend to clients. And that means coming to the present by keeping yourself in the physical world.
Right. What does that look like?
Oh, that can look like so many different things. It can look like going out into your yard barefoot and really feeling, I see you laughing, but I'm really serious. Like sometimes we get so in our heads that we forget that we live in a world. Right. So, make contact with the physical world through your bare feet. Yeah. Remind yourself, I am here, I am myself, I am in my body, I am in this country, in this yard, I'm safe in this space that I'm in. You remind yourself of some basic truths, and those things can help bring you down a bit. Your anxiety is not going to evaporate, most likely. Right. But when we get anxious, we also get tunnel vision. We're really, really bad at problem solving when we're anxious. So getting yourself to a space where you can consider more possibilities. I see my friend and they can say the beach. I love the beach for mindfulness exercises and for grounding, because you can tap into things on the beach with so many of your senses, visually, tactile, you know, in terms of the sand, the water, and you get differences in texture, the sunshine. So making contact with physical reality. And there's, you know, if we want to get scientific about it, there's data around this, right? That going outside for 20 minutes has notable effects on mood. Looking at green things, green growing green. No, for real. Looking at like leaves and shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, being in nature actually does something for us psychologically.
And ironically enough, you say that, because again, I want to tie back everything here to DJ conversation. About 2 weeks ago when I had Major Penny on, it was exactly 2 Thursdays ago, Penny said something to me which was actually pretty much to what you're speaking of. He said that there are multiple times where during this COVID-19 challenge, he would get up and go and walk at 4 in the morning. One, because for him, the night is his place, which for me personally it is too. There's something for me that's very calming about the night. The fact that everything is still, and like, you know, you're just you and your thoughts. And Penny would actually go and pick up and take a walk. Sometimes he'll go with his girlfriend and they'll go and walk and come back. And that would help ground him. And a lot of people will be like, all right, and they think that that's a strange thing to hear. But some of the reasons why we identifying all this, and I'm trying to give examples, is because I want people who are looking on to realize that what we are speaking about is not abstract things that you read in a book, and as you rightfully say, well, somebody say it. So, you know, these are things that actually when you physically do it, it might not help everything, but again, we're trying to find small incremental things to help you feel better at this point in time.
Everybody has their weird ones that they do. I have one I keep. There's me and another girl on Twitter, Nikki, obviously.
Right.
Does the same thing too. We're like, why don't more people do this?
Right.
I love to shower in the dark. No, for real. Like a dark bathroom and the shower, and I'm conscious of, like, I shower mindfully. It's like, you know, especially if I've had a really tough day, this idea of like talking to myself while I shower.
Right.
And like imagining the water washing the day away.
Right.
And even and it's also a time for me to, you know, I know we've talked a lot about the mind today, but I want people to think about the connection between their mind and their body, and you can use those moments to be kind to and talk to your body.
Yeah.
You know, like I use sometimes a morning shower or nighttime shower as moments for, you know, joining with my body and having gratitude for, like you say, you know, you thank you for supporting me. Thank you, legs, for continuing to work. Thank you.
That is so funny. That is so funny you say that. And for individuals that might not be accustomed to hearing that, I want to say that there is something known as self-talk, and what you tell yourself. And you can actually sit down and say to yourself, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do the other. And I have been guilty of that in the past. And to some extent, I think everybody also knows that at some point you'll have some particular level of self-doubt a lot when you go through situations, especially now. But I do believe that there is something like self-talk, where it is that you have, and it doesn't have to be out loud, so I mean, but you have like literal, I think that people have conversations with themselves, even if it's in the mind. You understand? You have a conversation with yourself to say, yo, today I want to do XYZ, I'm going to do so, I'm going to XYZ. Things are not as bad as they might seem. Okay, going back to the DJ example, yeah, all right, this guy is doing XYZ, yada, 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 but here we're going on. I am going to do so. For me, I'm building that self-talk and that self-conversation for your own self.
The first voice you hear is your own.
Correct. Right.
Yep.
So quickly, I want to get to the topic of social media before we wrap up tonight. I think that social media both helps and hinders this process. So for anybody who may wonder, how is it that social media could help or hinder you at this point in time, especially when it deals with creators particularly?
I think so. On the one hand, like we were saying today, social media, is a place where you could contact a whole bunch of people at once. So if it's connection you're looking for, you could potentially do it there on a variety of platforms, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, right? The flip side to it is that there's information that you may not want to interact with on all of those social media platforms.
Right.
Also, there are people who you may not want to interact with on all of those social media platforms, because some of us do make it our business to primarily amplify and support information that we think is going to be helpful, that's going to be joyful, or at a minimum, I know everything can't be happy, but at a minimum, things that are enriching or educational. Some of us go at social media with that idea, and other people, they're struggling in other places in their lives too, and they come on, and they complain, or actually even worse than complaining, tear at other people.
Yeah.
Or as an expression of their own pain.
Yeah.
So when you come on a social media platform, part of the risk you run is being in contact with the dark side of it.
Yeah.
Right? So what I was encouraging is like what I've encouraged people to do, and even myself, like this is something that I've been having to work with myself around, because in this situation, like I want to be on everything and I want to be in conversations, I want to be helpful, and at the same time I have to protect myself too, right? Because burnout is real,
right?
Because you do come in contact with energies and people that aren't helpful to you.
Yeah.
So curate your social media experience. Muting and blocking are not about being petty.
I wanted to repeat that line.
Muting and blocking don't have to do with being petty.
Correct.
You can mute or block someone because you think, you know what, I'm better off not interacting with their content.
Yeah.
Like, why expose myself to that? So in terms of cultivating certain people that you follow so that you can have a certain type of experience when you come onto your streams, I think that's important. Limiting how much time you spend on them.
Yeah.
So you because of the invention of endless scroll, you can just sit there.
Yeah,
and scroll.
It's interesting you raise that point, because I also think that, and this is something I've started doing myself. There are some days where I literally will not go on Instagram, because you have to remind yourself that there are people that are going to be posting on Instagram that are posting the actual life, but there are going to be people that, as we like to say in Trinidad, selling a loop. So they're selling a life that is posted if the best version of what they would like themselves to be, but it's not necessarily that. And a lot of times, if it is that you're going through a challenge, and again, I'm going to bring it back to a DJ conversation. So you are out there putting out your mixes, doing this, doing that, doing the other. And again, you're looking at somebody else who might have a picture with 10 million likes and you have 5, or you might see somebody who is out there having all these different interactions and you have none, or whatever. And you might feel at that point in time again that you are not as relevant to that person. But not seeing it that way does not necessarily mean that you have no relevance, period. And I think sometimes we all have a tendency to look at social media, and there are some people that kind of look a little bit, they kind of feel somewhat inferior to what they are seeing other people doing.
Of course. I mean, Instagram in particular is a big place for that, where people curate their image. I mean, like there was that Facebook had that that element, but because Instagram is specifically pictures and videos, like people are very careful about curating a certain image of themselves. Now, the thing that is key to remember, like you were saying, they're posting their highlight reel.
Yeah.
So you are sitting in your house, in whatever state you in, and you are judging your whole life in all of its richness and ups and downs and, you know, and variances against this one little moment, little square of one little moment of this thing. That person's life is not like that 24/7. Nobody's is.
Yeah.
So you don't judge your whole life against somebody else's highlight reel. I've seen that I'm not going to pretend that's my quote. I've seen it in other places, but I think it very much captures something that you have to keep in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
When you look. I think I saw somebody said talk about, oh, I might be missing the beach while somebody on your Instagram is enjoying a beach. And yeah, that could really make you like that can be painful. Like think about, you know, if you're not in the place where you're ready to see that because you don't have access to it and seeing it is only gonna bring you pain at this point, you may want to limit.
Yeah.
You know? So it involves having some conversations with yourself about like, well, what do I need right now? A lot of our phones now have features on them that'll let you see your screen time.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, yes, there are some persons who are very isolated and may not have people that they can contact with or people that they have good, deep relationships with. And I feel very empathetic towards those people and hope that if you're somebody who is isolated, you know, that there is even one person that you feel like you can reach out to. But most people have at least somebody. So if you find that you've gotten too caught up in the phone and in the social media and you spent a lot of time on it, you know, check in with yourself. When's the last time I connected with an actual human?
That is a true point because, and this is now where I'll put up our personal story. Because I've known you for this time, and there are times when we, you know, because of your life and my life, we are disconnected for a particular period of time. And I'd message you, and I'd say, yeah, well, I was just thinking about you, and so I decided to call. And I usually tell people that sometimes I send voice notes to people because to me, it gives a particular level of realism to conversation, right? Yeah. Because when it is that you actually sit down and you are, it can be said now that we are on our phones like for the majority of the day. So even at times when you tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to check Instagram, you end up on Instagram because, well, you're just on your phone. And sometimes it's just because you're sitting down, you're going somewhere and you want to occupy your time, so you pull out your phone. Or you're home lying down in your bed, as you say, in the dark of night, and, you know, you just decide to go through the endless scroll feed because it's not like you're scrolling up and it stops. You could scroll for days, and then for the females, you're seeing this girl on Instagram and she have the best picture of herself and you're watching yourself and saying, wait, boy, I wish I could look like that. And for fellas like me, I can tell you, I've had people that have met me and say, yo, dog, I see you flying here, there. But even back to basics, on Tuesday, he said that a lot of people see my life on social media and they're like, I want to exchange lives with you because they see you in this country, that country, playing music for people. And he was like, you don't want my life. And I think a lot of people don't understand that about social media and about especially putting up pictures that are supposed to be the best representation of yourself because people are just curating content for you to come back there.
Yeah, of course. Chacha is asking whether we think that some of the issues people are facing is due to the reduction of that personal interaction with people. I think definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because there's things that are happening, and I see a question, you know, what about the desire for likes in its relation to dopamine? Actually, Chacha's question and this question, I think, have deep connections with each other. Because there's things that happen for us neurochemically when we're in connection with people, right?
Right.
So when you're with somebody who you feel really safe with, you get a rush of a bunch of things that you learned to like when you were a baby. Oxytocin, vasopressin, those are the hormones of bonding.
Right.
Right? And also the hormones of calm. Vasopressin is an inhibitor and it helps calm you down.
I hope everybody taking notes on those two words that you just mentioned there. I'm making sure I look into the camera and say it. So I hope you
understand. Oxytocin in response to people you're in love with too.
Because we said we weren't going to use big technical stuff.
I know, but I feel like
at the same time.
For some, you know, this is just good information to know that there's things that are happening, you know, in other places in your body from being with people that we care about. So definitely when you don't have that access, when you can't do something as simple as a hug, you feel that. and it has an effect on you elsewhere in your body. Bonding with people reduces your stress, and that has an effect on your actual body.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's affecting people's physical health, and then there's ramifications on their mental health, and vice versa. That's a bidirectional thing.
Yeah.
In terms of what Charlo was asking about likes and their relation to dopamine, it really is a rush.
Yeah.
And you go back looking for that rush, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you feel like somebody's giving you some sort of approval, we have a deep need to belong.
Yeah.
And to be liked, and to be thought of positively.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we go on social media, we get some of that from that.
Yeah.
And maybe some people, in the absence of all of that connection that they used to have maybe there's some people who've outsourced that to their social media in ways that aren't the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. One last things I want to ask you as well too, and not just really ask, but kind of you utilizing your understanding of how I guess we are internally made up, to kind of reiterate the point, especially to people on the live right now, how important it is to support creative people at this point in time. And I'll say that for one reason. I have a DJ friend who was like, well, I've seen all these DJs going live now, and I don't really want to, they look at it as, why he going live, or why he doing this, or why he doing that, or why he doing the other. And then there are people who are out there who probably were party creators, event creators. And it doesn't even have to be events, even if it is that you're an artist or somebody that utilize your creative passion to entertain people in a particular way. And now you're not allowed to do that. And I think to the average person, I don't think they understand how supporting individuals like that at this point in time is not just important for them business-wise, but it's actually important for them mentally and emotionally. Can you speak to something like that?
So, are you asking me to talk about why it's important to be supportive of them in the endeavors, or why it's important that we be supportive of them as people?
I'll say both.
Okay. Right. So it's important. So in terms of the business piece or endeavors that they put out there, it's important for us to do that because there's going to be a life beyond this, right? And how to put this in a package this up in a good way. We are from a region and of a people that our oral traditions and our cultural traditions are where our history lives, right? And people who are responsible for making and producing art, they hold a lot of that, right? So it's essential that we hold them up, lift them up while we're in a situation where some of their traditional income streams may be reduced, because they are important to us culturally, and because like they are really the holders of our spirit. Like I'm thinking of I've been to Trinidad Carnival twice,
right? And
the first year that I went was 2017, and that was the year when Road Match was it was Ultimate Rejects. We jamming still, and a lot going on in Trinidad socially at that time. And you think about, okay, what is the purpose of a song like that as a distillation of a people, of how they're feeling, what they're feeling.
Right.
So we can't let those people down now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because they're responsible for translating a lot of what we're thinking and feeling into these things that we can all experience together. Whether it's songs, whether it's beats, whether it's people who do events and parties, whether it's poets,
Yeah.
They're one of the tent poles that's holding up everything.
Yeah.
Right. So if we let them down, we let down ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that is important too, because again, a lot of times we say that we don't support each other creatively all the time. So there's always say that you might be toiling to do something here, and it's only when you make it big abroad, everybody is appreciating you. You understand? But I think now is a point in time when you can actually appreciate individuals around you. And I'm going to go back to our original point that we said earlier, which is if there's anybody inside here who is a promoter, a DJ, or somebody that is trying to figure out what they could do right now to build connections with people, come up with concepts that are not following the norms and curate concepts that connect in different ways. Yes, yeah. And this is where I'll take a plug for this platform, because at the beginning of this pandemic, I had a discussion with the guys from Group Theory. It's like, yo, I think that there's something that we should do that is totally different. And understanding that everybody is going to have a, as we call, legs and pegs party, right? And everybody going to do stuff like that. We wanted to come up with a way that we build connections with people, meet new people, and find, you know, motivations, help people get through this. That was different. And this is how we come up with the Group Theory One-on-One Live. There are other people that I'm seeing doing different things. So just because everybody might be doing an online party, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do an online party as well. It just means that if you want to create content as somebody who's in entertainment, now is a great time to come up with innovative ways that is totally different from everybody else. And if that doesn't work, try something else. And as you were saying before, at times when you feel yourself getting low, use like little incremental steps to improve on daily behavior to the point where you can feel confident that today I could take on the world, so to speak. That's correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just want to take Empress's comment. When I was quarantining in my apartment in JA alone, it was so overwhelming. Quarantining at home with my family is not so bad. I could stay home forever. And that's
you get that connection.
There are people who have been saying for the longest while, I wish I could go out, I wish I could go out. But I would also like to put out there, now we can actually think of the amount of things that you've been able to do while being in. The people in your life who you've actually had time to have conversation with. Some of the things that you were able to learn on your own. For people like me, some of the sleep that you couldn't get now that you wasn't getting before. Yes, so there are some intrinsic benefits to come out of actually being home in quarantine. And as she said, she had the time that she could be home with her family now. So yes, she was there, but now she's actually home and she could spend time with her family. Yes, So yeah, I get that. I get that, and I totally agree with a lot of all that you said. I really have to say I appreciate this conversation tonight. I know a lot of people will look at this conversation as totally left field from what we generally discuss on Group Theory. But at the same point in time, I believe that a lot of what we discussed are things that people could utilize to their own personal lives, not just as DJs or creatives or whatever, but at the same point in time for the normal average person that is looking towards how is my life going to look if there's no carnival and what I can do to actually feel better. Understanding why it is that we have so many virtual parties and why you may or may not feel connected to it. And more importantly, for individuals to understand that now is a time to really support creative people as much as possible. And for those individuals who may be going through challenging times, what are some of the things that they can do to identify that they may not be in the best headspace? And as you rightly said, what they can do to incrementally get themselves to be in a better spot, you know? So
something I wanted to point out before we go, which I think might be relevant too in terms of persons knowing whether something is going on that isn't quite right. Trying, and I know this can be tough, so I'm asking everybody to kind of reach into themselves and try to do this. If somebody comes to you and asks you if everything is okay, trying not to go to a defensive place, because sometimes that's what we do, right? We go to, try to sit with it for a second. Just sit with the, hey, somebody wants to know how I am. That's important. Wow, somebody thought about me and wanted to know that. But B, if people are asking me how I am, and I am repeating the mantra, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not fine.
Right.
So at least entertain the possibility. Okay, somebody asked, am I as fine as I think I am? you know. And I know that that can be scary because the minute you start talking about a thing or entertaining it, it can make it feel more real.
Correct. Yeah.
So I get it. I understand the hesitation around doing it. So I'm saying all that to say I understand the hesitation, and I'm just hoping that people will be willing, after listening to that, to, you know, go out on a little bit of a limb.
Yeah.
A little bit of a risk. Sit with that. Instead of pushing the feeling away, sit with it for a second.
And I would say if there are people in your life that you trust them enough to know that if you're not okay, it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
And it's even better when it says that you can actually open up to that person. And even if it's not in a big grand way at the point in time, you do it in a way that you could bring yourself to some level of comfort again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, you're stronger than you think.
Correct. And I think it takes, and I'm going to say this especially from my own personal experience, it takes greater strength sometimes to admit that something is wrong, as opposed to fighting to tell yourself that you're okay when you're not. Understand? Because when it says that you actually admit that something is wrong, it means that you identify that you want to get better. And just like how for anybody, if I want to learn to do something better here, I could go and talk to any DJ friend and say, yo, this, I'm not figuring it out. Could you help me? It took a lot for me to go and ask for that help. So when it is that you are emotionally feeling a certain way, it actually takes a lot of strength to message somebody and say, yo, I already know that all are good today, you know? And again, mindfulness to people that you can't trust, and people that know you and understand who you are, because we all have days when we just are not okay. And that's fine.
Yeah,
you know?
Agree completely.
So, as I said before, this is a beginning discussion that we had. And I'm hoping that we can do this again, if not on this platform, on a different platform as well. So I want to thank you very, very much for your expertise and your advice and your point of view tonight. And I won't be a stranger, so I know you won't be a stranger as well too. And we will keep in touch.
Yes, I had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Bye everyone.